In this first creativity workshop, we were taught by Matt about how our brains come up with ideas and how they can be influenced by outside factors without our knowledge. We explained that we are able to imagine a kid's birthday because we have all had one. It would have balloons, a cake, and all of your friends there. He then went on to explain that there was a man who was in an accident and lost all of his long-term memory. This meant that the man was unable to imagine things from the past, and so could not come up with the images and ideas that we can. This whole workshop was about how anyone can come up with a fantastic idea with lots of action and a good storyline, but without the right people and equipment, it would never work, and so would just be a fart, in his words. He said that there is only point in coming up with ideas that you yourself can achieve at that point in time, otherwise you would just be disappointed that you could not do it. He told us a good example of this. Nintendo came up with a game called F-Zero, which was a racing game, but it did not sell very well. The boss of Nintendo then had the idea of coming up with a game that was 2 players, so people could play with their friends. So he asked the engineers to make this game. They said it was impossible unless they cut the gameplay speed, but the boss was determined to make this game, and after all of the work done to F-Zero, it turned out as Mario Kart, which is to this day still one of the most well-known games. He also taught us a harsh lesson, in that if you pursue an idea that you think is going really well, but ends up not working, then you just need to get rid of it. Do not hold on to a failing idea no matter how good you think it is. In this second workshop, we were taught about how to set up and use a camera. The camera was called the Blackmagic Mini Ursa and was a semi-professional camera. As you can see, it's quite a serious piece of gear, and so to learn how to set it up and actually film something on it would have been a challenge for me, as I have had no previous experience of cameras apart from my iPhone. First we looked at the stand for the camera. This was the simple bit, as all you had to do was unfold the stand, unlock 3 clips, and then tighten them back up at the height you desired. After this, it was onto the camera itself. To attach the camera to the stand, you had to make sure that a piece of metal that locks the camera was not in the way, and then press a button to allow the camera to slide on and lock it in place. We then actually got to use the camera, and Matt taught us how to change the lighting on the camera to suit the surrounding area. This was very easy, but very effective. We then were taught how to zoom and focus the camera. At first, this was hard, but then when we used the camera more and more and got more comfortable with it, it became easier. He told us a tip for finding the perfect focus. It was to zoom in really close to the thing you were filming, and then focus on that. And then when you zoom back out, it will be perfectly focused. A final lesson he taught us is that the most expensive camera is not always the best for what you are trying to do. For example, if you're an extreme sports person, then you will not want to be holding a huge camera with lots of attachments. You'd much rather use a GoPro. For the third workshop, we focused on the rules for filming and how to create a good sequence of shots. He started off by explaining the 180-degree rule, which is when you have 2 subjects, for example, 2 people face to face having a conversation. Then there is an invisible line in between them that you can't cross at any point in filming these 2 subjects. This is so that the audience can know what is going on, as if you have crossed this line, then it would be like the 2 subjects have switched places and the audience would be confused. However, it is okay to cross this line if you are filming continuously, as then the audience can follow where the camera is going and will not be confused. Matt then spoke about the placement of what you are filming within the shot of the camera. He said that people will always, as a beginner, put the thing that they are filming in the middle of the shot. But this will leave lots of empty space that is useless and can be filled up to create more action and become less boring. He then let us film a short sequence using the lessons we had been taught and testing our skills. We decided to go with myself and Bodders, walking up to each other, taking our hoods off and then putting them back on. We would then edit these shots together in the next workshop. In this fourth workshop, we were taught how to use the editing software called Adobe Premiere Pro, which is a software that is downloaded onto the Mac computers we used. This software is professional and Deadpool was created on it, so we knew we could rely on it to create a good looking sequence. On the picture to the right, you can see the layout of the software, and although it may look confusing, and it did for me at first, after we got to use it, it became fun and slightly more simple. There is a list of abbreviations that we used and that they use in the professional editing world. Project bins are folders that you can use to group together all of your footage. Rushes is the raw footage from the camera. To log the footage is to give the rush a name. We use Command C to copy the footage in audio and Command V to paste this. Trim handles are to edit the clip and shorten it to the desired size. We used I and O to signal where we wanted the rush to start and end. In the fifth workshop, we then filmed a sequence, also using dialogue. This gave us the added challenge of not just filming, but also getting the audio correct. My team was Bodders, myself and Kasim. We used Bodders and Kasim as the actors and myself to film and use their camera. This gave me time to refine my skills as a cameraman. We were told to only film a basic sequence, just to get a feel for using the camera and adding dialogue. We had Bodders enter the room and ask Kasim if he had done the media prep. Kasim replied with no, and so Bodders said darn it and walked out. We did multiple shots of every possible thing we could, so over the shoulder shots, wide shots and close-ups that we'd been taught in the previous workshops. This also allowed us to create a short but in-depth sequence using all of our knowledge and skills. We managed to get a good amount of shots to edit in the next workshop. For the sixth and final workshop, it was time for us to really refine our skills in editing, by not just editing the raw footage into a sequence, but also adding the dialogue as well. We started with Bodders, opening the door and walking in. We realised later in editing that there was a continuity slip, as Bodders walked through the door with his hood up and out the other side with his hood down. We did not see this as a huge mistake, but a good lesson for us to learn, and not to make again. After we had edited all of the footage together, we played it through, and happily, we realised that the vast majority of the audio made sense. Only there was a problem with the door sounding like it opened twice, so we quickly fixed that by detaching the audio and filling it in with the correct audio, like we had been taught to do. We then were taught about the rule of 3, which is that with the titles you put into your footage, they must be able to be read 3 times over quickly. So we added subtitles to our sequence to test this out. After this workshop was over, we had felt like our skills with cameras and editing had come a huge way, from not being able to even switch on a camera to editing a short sequence with audio and titles.